From the East Coast to the West Coast, we are everywhere true crime is. We are asking for the public's help. We are searching in the woods. We are doing what it takes here on the Bullhorn Betty channels to find answers to the most alarming cases we have been watching on the news. I can tell you personally that I have traveled this entire country seeking these answers and bringing that content right here to you here on the Bullhorn Betty channels and Bullhorn Betty Crime Stories. We are happy with the work that we've done. We brought many answers to the public, and we have defied mainstream media in our pursuit of the truth in these cases. We will continue to work. We will continue to fight for these victims, and we will continue to tell their stories here on my channels. Welcome to the Bullhorn Betty brand of channels and the Coffee Club. Thank you for your love, thank you for your support, and more importantly, thank you for allowing me to bring these victims' stories to each and every one of you, advocating for each of these victims. God bless you, God bless America, and more importantly, God bless our victims. Hey guys, it's nice to see you. I really don't come on here very much anymore for a variety of reasons, but there was a new, I guess, podcast. Well, he's not new. He's actually got 500,000 plus views or subscribers on YouTube, and it's called The Lore Lodge. And they're doing a, hey guys, it's nice to see you. It's nice to see you. So they're doing a like a 3-part, maybe even more part series on Sebastian Rogers. And this is Sebastian Rogers. He's a 15-year-old autistic boy that's disappeared from his home in Hendersonville, Tennessee, and hasn't been seen or heard from since. And, he went to sleep in his home, inside his locked home with his mother, according to all the reports. And then the next morning, 6 o'clock, she pops out of bed, goes to his room, and somehow he's gone. And they say he walked out the door, though nobody saw him, and the front door was totally locked. It's nice to see you. Hey guys, I see you. What is it, Welsh? Stacy, it's nice to see you, my love. Catch my love. Hello from Arizona. It's nice to see you all. It's nice to see you all. And so I thought it was really interesting because one of the biggest issues that I have whenever I'm going through these cases is am I analyzing it correctly? I'm putting boots on the ground. I'm putting real money behind these cases and really trying to help find information, find a lead, find the child or person missing, anything I can do to help. And this is kind of where we're at. And so I've made a lot of bold revelations from, related to Chris Proudfoot and Katie Proudfoot, which is his mother, his biological mother, and his stepfather. And then, of course, there's Seth Rogers, which my heart bleeds for because Seth Rogers, he's a father that's been searching for a son. And we've got a lot of bad actors, now, mind you, Seth is also disabled himself. He has autism himself. So you're talking about a disabled person that people, even on this app, have trashed nonstop and continuously, unnecessarily. And he is a victim of this as well. He's missing his son. He hasn't been able to find his son. By the way, he's the only one that has passed his polygraph, and those polygraph results were released to the public by an FBI-trained polygrapher. So it obviously he has nothing to hide, and he was at work on video camera inside a jail because he's a deputy sheriff and a correctional. I don't know if it's considered a correctional officer or whatever, but he's inside that jail, taking care of the inmates. So he has a key card that literally drives into a secured parking lot, and he also has the videos inside the jail. So long story short, the idea that he could be guilty of this crime is ridiculous. People have made up some salacious allegations against not only Seth, but Tony Mathis, his spokesperson, again, on this platform as well as on other platforms related to their team. And it's not well taken because, again, they're the only ones out there looking for this child. And most of the people that are making these allegations, they're nowhere to be found. You know what? They're stuffed up in their homes. They're not doing anything except complaining about two people that are actually putting work behind what they're stating. There's been multiple private searches by his father, put on by his father, which was related to information garnered by the father's PI. So it's been... it's kind of bittersweet because, obviously Seth's been in the, they've been doing boat searches and stuff like that. A couple weeks ago, they're going to be doing some other types of searches. I'm not sure if it's boat searches or land searches in the near future. Again, all private. But the one thing, the bittersweet part of it is they haven't found anything that's going to lead to Sebastian's whereabouts. They haven't found Sebastian, which, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because, thank you, girls next door. God bless you. Because you want to find your child, but in the same sense, you also don't want to find anything because of the areas you're searching. It implies that this child is deceased. So they did find several things of interest, but upon closer look and inspection, they were cleared and nothing associated with Sebastian Rogers, which again, is a good thing as well as a bad thing because he's been gone by the time we do our gathering of voices, it will be 6 months. We're doing a gathering of voices at the Sumner County Sheriff's Department on August 26th from 9 to 12. We will be having cake out there. I'm just going to get a sheet cake. So if you guys know you're going to be out there for the gathering of voices, then please send me an email at bullhornbetty@gmail.com. I'm taking a head count so I know what size cake I need to get, as well as bringing out some much needed refreshments, some water and soda and what have you. This is not going to be, thank you, Mickey. Thank you, guys. I love it. I love it. It's nice to see you. Beach. Hey, honey. I hope everything's going well. So, a long story short is, one of the biggest problems I always have is whether I'm analyzing a case correctly. Am I picking up on all the things I need to pick up on? Am I, looking at the right people for this particular matter? And for a long time, we were one of the few that made such bold statements at the beginning that went polar opposite with a lot of our law enforcement channels where they have like FBI agents and, retired cops and things like that. And we made some bold statements, but those statements are now being stated not only by these law enforcement agents, which have, kind of got on board with kind of our analysis, but having the Lore Lodge take a deep dive into this case just to give us their opinion, in his opinion, on what they're finding is nice to hear, it's nice to read, and everything like that. There was one a bit of, not necessarily concern, but there was one part where he states that, related to the thud, when he asked his father, if you heard a thud coming, because apparently his brother has ADHD or autism. I'm sorry, I really can't remember which one it was. But either way, he asked his father, and his father was like, I really wouldn't have went and checked on it, checked on my son anyways. So it kind of gives, that, but the difference between Sebastian and just normal autistic children is that he has fluid on his brain. And head injuries or falling out of the bed or hitting his head could have some really grave effects on him. And that's the reason why it was so odd that Katie didn't go in and check on Sebastian. One thing that was noted on the Lore Lodge, and he's a content creator on YouTube, and that's how you spell it, the Lore Lodge, so you can go out there and find it. Really nice kid. Seems like he really took his time to review things. The very first video he did, he was just kind of getting his audience up to snuff on what the case was. And then he took a deeper dive into it. And like many of us, it takes you down a whole bunch of rabbit holes, There's so much here, and there's so much to unpack from the many, many interviews, social media interviews, news interviews that Chris and Katie gave, and their constant changing of their story. And they always seem to change their story as they started seeing questions or people challenging some of the things in, say, the comments, because it wasn't like on their feel-good channels, it wasn't like they were being challenged. People were just letting them talk. And even like when they went back to Duchess the second time, she didn't really hold their feet to the fire. She didn't say, well, you said this on this time and you're saying this now. Nobody wanted to challenge them or ask them. Chris was always accepting, I'm ready for the tough questions. I'm ready for the tough questions. And every time you asked the tough questions, it was privacy, HIPAA, it was just ridiculous of the stories that he came up with. And some of the reasons why he was so hesitant to answer, again, was a little problematic. So, what does it say? The vigil is on the 24th. Time will be announced this week. Gathering of Voices 426. Oh, thank you, Karen. Yes, that is exactly correct. That is exactly. Oh, hey, hindsight. It's nice to see you, my love. I hope you're doing well. Did they find him? No, they didn't. And here's we've been getting pictures from a North Carolina Walmart that says that puts him on the recovered side. Now, I don't know if that's somebody, we know how this stuff goes in the manufacturing of information. Oh, thank you, girl next door. The manufacturing of especially photos, right? You got to really know where the source of these photos and stuff come from, because people troll, people do things. Oh, hey, Tony, it's nice to see you. It's nice to see you. And so I thought it was really interesting. And the one thing that the Lore Lodge, and I don't remember the kid's name, but he seems like a really nice kid, really thoughtful, and very cautious about how he says things and what he says and how he relays that to his audience. So I was really appreciative of that. But he comes up with some of the same conclusions that we've been coming up with throughout this entire investigation. Is it finding Sebastian? No, it hasn't found Sebastian yet, but it's giving us a little bit of hope to continue to look for Sebastian. Anybody with any information related to Sebastian Rogers is asked to call 1-800-TBI-FIND or their local FBI office. There's a couple nuances here that we did find through our work, and after our speaking to Seth, I was talking about these schools for autistic children. Well, we found out looking in all these schools that there is a requirement from these places that require both parents to sign the paperwork or court information to say that the one or the other parent is no longer in the child's life. It is a requirement. But one thing we found out is, say, for a mental hospital or something related to mental health, it would only require the custodial parent. And they are not required to tell anybody who their patient is. So that causes a lot of concern because, of course, Katie has people in North Carolina, family that's in North Carolina. It's a little concerning that we have a North Carolina post that states that Sebastian is recovered. I went out into the Hendersonville community to post flyers and other things out there, and they were all taken down by the family. I was stalked by Terry Bowersox while I was in town, where he followed me for a half an hour. And then when I was parked, decided to come up and take my tag, which was a little creepy because obviously he had already had my tag information because he had been following me for 30 minutes. So he just wanted to let me know that he was there. He wanted to let me know that he had my tag number, as if it was going to intimidate me. All it did was make me very upset. I don't like feeling, it was creepy. Let's be honest. That is pretty creepy stuff. You don't have time to go help search for a missing child from your own family, but you have enough time to hunt a searcher down or somebody trying to find information. But we did find information. Chris was lying then. Chris kept telling everybody that he was at work, or actually I shouldn't say he was saying he was at work. He was very vague on where he was. But all of a sudden, the public PIs, the crap PIs that Seth was working with that didn't do any service to him. They have no education on how to be a PI. Let's face it. They went to school, they passed a test, and they're not required to, like in Florida, you're required, in order for you to get a PI license, you have to work with a PI for 2 solid years. 2 solid years to get your PI license. These people go and take a test and they call themselves a PI. Yeah, that's not how it quite goes. But apparently in some states, that's their only requirement. Here, in the state of Florida, we like people knowing what they're doing. And so that is the requirement here in the state of Florida. You must work with a licensed PI for 2 years before you are fully licensed as a PI. You have to remember that. There are legitimate PIs and there are PIs in name only, okay? And that's what we were dealing with. We were dealing with very unprofessional PIs that thought they were the shit, and they were not. And they started passing around that Chris was at work at 5:15. I still have not a clue where the heck they got that from. It looks like they did a really crappy investigation, one that they just drove by to see when the gates were open, which the gates are open at 5:15, and they left it at that. But they are, don't understand that on projects like that, you have many companies because you have a lot of subcontractors on there. So there's plumbing subcontractors, there are electrical subcontractors, there's drywall subcontractors, there's concrete subcontractors. So you have all of these subcontractors under this big conglomerate of a general contractor. And those different companies show up at their job to do their job at different times, not necessarily all at the same time. So the people that were arriving at 5:15 were actually working inside on the bottom floor. You could see all the lights on and everybody kind of in their place doing whatever they were supposed to be doing, whether it's electrical, plumbing, or whatever. You even had somebody at the gate working on something out there. But the bottom line is that the crane operators don't get there until somewhere around 7 because they start their job at 7. So I don't know how this whole 5:15, I fell for it too. I was looking at them at 5:15 and looking at that timeline, and it just, nothing ever worked with the timeline with him getting there at 5:15. I don't know where the girls found the 5:15 number, but when I sat there, because I went out there, and of course I pulled up and parked and was out there talking, and there were some people that weren't ready to start their job yet, so they're all standing around talking amongst themselves around their cars, sitting in their cars and stuff like that. And so did Ellie pull medical? I don't know, Janie. Law enforcement has been very quiet, to say the least. We heard from another content creator that they had done forensics in the house, and I'm like, whoa, what? And they're like, oh, well, no, they found something in the backyard, and they did forensics in the backyard. I'm like, whoa, what? And then I hear that, oh, by the way, TBI took over the investigation. I'm like, whoa, what? So, a lot of stuff has been coming out, and I think it wasn't that it was bunk information. I truly believe the person was speaking to law enforcement. He was just speaking to the wrong people in law enforcement. And some of the people in law enforcement, I think, had their information a little skewed. So Nick Barris had published an article that addressed that TBI does not have the case, that it very much still is in Sumner County, but never, ever, ever addresses the forensics or forensics findings, if any. When you go on any website, whether it be Sumner County, which has absolutely nothing, or TBI, which hasn't been updated since April 25th, you learn very soon that at least up until April 25th, there's been no forensic findings. Now, or forensic testing at all. So I'm very curious if they truly did find, because the creator that stated that Hendersonville police stated that there was something found in the backyard and forensics was done out there. I don't discredit that, because that would be the time that Hendersonville Police Department was actually involved with the searches and stuff like that and everything. So Is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. But as far as the inside, you guys have to remember, I did have several conversations with a few of law enforcement officers handling this case. One was a major, which was I think he was the main detective on this. Either way, I was under the impression that no forensics has been done in the house, and quite one of my whistle calls for the gathering of voices, because according to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, this house and his room should have been treated as a crime scene, and all of the necessary testing should have been done at that time, which we learned was not. And then when you start doing some research on Google to find out, in a missing person case that has not been found, when should forensics be done, you hear the suggestion of 90 days. So we're past all of that. And they still won't address why they have not done forensics. They won't address whether they have or have not done forensics. And when I talk to neighbors and other people in the community, especially in and around the time that this was going on, in and around the time that they did their reenactment, so to speak, 2 weeks later, it didn't sound like they had done forensics in the house. Forensics in the house is a process, and it's a public process. You can't miss the process. The process is very visible and noticeable. Not just the amount of people there, but you usually have tables set up to process bag and tag information. You have a lot of people going in and out with suits on. You've got them putting like these black trash bag type things all over the window to black out or block out any type of sunlight. So they can get a good look at everything. And a lot of people have the mistake of stating that, why are they looking for DNA? Forensics is a lot more than DNA. It's a lot more than blood. For example, I think it was the Gannon Stout case where they had the sheet and you could almost see the face, or not the sheet, but the pillow. And you could almost see the face in the pillow with the forensic testing, the saliva of the perfect face of the, something being put over. So a lot of people mistake what forensics really is. It's not just about the blood. It's about other bodily fluids such as saliva, urine, defecation. There's other body fluids that these forensic testing type of things will find. I believe this child, based upon the bruise on the neck, right at his Adam apple, on the Optimism shirt photo, I truly believe that if something did happen to him, there's a lot of people that believe he was kidnapped by his mom, by a family member, and taken away. They believe that he was taken away either to a facility, a camp, or something of that nature. We knew that there was a hot issue with Chris wanting full custody of his daughter, Faith. And for whatever reason in his life, he did not believe he could get custody of his daughter with Sebastian around. See, Chris doesn't, he's so messed up in the skull, he doesn't realize he's the issue. It's not everybody else. It truly is just him and his sick way of thinking. But he basically made Katie decide if it's going to be her son or him. They were heading to divorce when all of this took place with Sebastian. And that was pretty much, that had come out. We haven't, now the Lore Lodge hasn't touched on that yet. I'm curious if and when they will. But it's well established that a neighbor heard Chris screaming at Katie, and one of those screams was, "It's your son or me," and he pretty much left. And I think that was the last time he had come home. And he has been gone from that house ever since. And now it was getting close to Chris having custody of Nina, or at least for the summer, or whatever their trial or hearing was going to be. And then boom, bam, boom, the son's gone. He's out of the house. Except this time, nobody knows where he is. He didn't leave with shoes. It was a cold night. He's got sensory issues. He's autistic, so he has other things that will set him off, make him melt down. And some of those things are bugs and dirt. So the idea that he walked out of the house, I don't think anybody believes. Law enforcement doesn't believe, but this is what Katie and Chris need everybody to believe. It's not true. The Lore Lodge goes into some of the information that led him to believe that same statement. So I definitely recommend, if you guys have never heard of the Lore Lodge, again, I don't usually recommend a lot of channels, but when I do come across one that really takes their time and is very thorough, and I feel like is explaining it better than I've heard it explained before, I definitely like to advocate for that channel, because in the grand scheme of things, it's about getting as much information out there or corroborating some information. Yeah, she is with Nina. We did get a notification that Nina does have her back in her arms, and I think she's very thankful. I can't imagine being a mom and knowing that one child disappeared from a home and that you're being forced by the courts. Courts, you know, they deal with parents all the time. They deal with parents making stuff up all the time. And so it's sometimes hard for the courts to understand or know what the right answer is. But at the end of the day, the courts had nothing to withhold Faith from Chris for. Chris has never been charged with a crime. Even though there is a Department of Children and Family Services report open that could have led to charges of a crime, it never went through to fruition because, let's face it, within 30 days of that case being open, Sebastian Rogers disappeared almost to the day, 30 days. And so that's been very concerning for many people. So I do expect and hope that you guys go over to the Lore Lodge on YouTube, check it out, and, you know, let me know what you think. I'm still looking for information. You know, we're going to be going back out to Tennessee here in just the near future. And I have already selected my areas I would like to search. And I need to meet with law enforcement while I'm out there to talk to them about several things, including our gathering of voices that we're going to be doing at their office at from 9 to 12. I want to make sure that I know what area we can set up in and where we'll be most visible. But I need to set up, you know, just a little table to keep the cake off the ground, and, you know, just to stick the cooler under there so anybody can grab something to drink. I anticipate it being pretty hot, but I want to make sure that we have, well, not necessarily pretty hot. I mean, it's cooler there than it is here in Florida. So, okay, well then I don't know why you're here. Probably because you can't handle your own bad behavior. So, yeah, we're just, I don't know what's wrong with people. I think people have screws loose in their heads, but it is what it is, right? So we're going to be out there to gather voices, and the people that want to participate in this can participate. If you're going to bring, I hope everybody brings their own signs, because so far I still haven't had anybody reach out to me to give a cost of signs, and I haven't had an opportunity to even search for them because I'm extremely busy. So we want signs, if you're going to bring your own signs, not to be signs of condemnation. You know, we want to bring Sebastian home. You know, we have those things. Bring Sebastian home. Where's the forensics? You know, where's forensics done? Sebastian's Army, Sebastian Strong. You know, we want to be encouraging, but we want demands as well. So it's going to be, we're doing this gathering of voices from a place of love, not condemnation. We're not going to have signs that say lock them up. We're not going to have signs, shame on Sumner County Sheriff. You know, it's not that kind of gathering of voices. Will that happen at one point, at a point in time? I really don't know, but if it does, it's definitely not this one, right? We want to make sure that they know that Sebastian has a loving army around him that is really truly fighting for him in a positive manner, in a positive way. That's really what we want to espouse when we're there. So we want all, you know, signs geared toward that. You know, one of the other things is, and this is kind of because people twist and turn a lot of this stuff. I'm trying to fight to have Seth cleared. This is a fight that I'm taking to law enforcement, and this is the reason why. Because the Cold Case Foundation, which is headed by Chris McDonough, he is willing to come in and help, but they need at least one cleared parent. or they need law enforcement themselves to ask them to come in, which law enforcement hasn't been willing to do. So one of our demands is to clear Seth so he can bring him in. And everybody started saying, oh, you just want him, you can't demand. I can demand whatever the heck I want to demand. That's the whole purpose of gathering of the voices, right? Raising our voices and making sure our demands are clear. But it's not just about that. One thing I've learned throughout these cases that I'm doing in Tennessee is that Tennessee closes their law enforcement down nights and weekends. Their offices, do they have officers? It doesn't matter. Our law enforcement across this country, these are safe spaces. They should be open to the public. Okay, if somebody is in need, they should be able to walk into any law enforcement officer and not be locked out of their law enforcement. I'm sorry, there's something in me that just says that's wrong. I have never known law enforcement, in my whole entire 45 years in this county, which I was born in this county and I still reside in this county. So I've been here my entire life, okay? I've never known my sheriffs, my police station, or anything to ever be closed down or there ever be a locked door anywhere in this county. Since I was born, I don't recall. Now, maybe when I was younger, could it have happened? Okay, maybe. But I've never seen it, I don't recall it in my lifetime. Okay? In the 45 years I've been blessed to walk this earth. And then I hear that this is the case, and when it came to realization, it was when Riley Strain's friends said that they went up to report their friend missing, and they went to go walk into the police station, and the police station was locked. And this is in downtown Nashville, right next to the Strip. And I'm thinking, well, there's definitely crime there. There's no reason why any police station or outfit in that general vicinity should ever have a locked door. And then I find out, wait a minute, this is the way it is across Tennessee. And I'm like, what? And then I find out this is the way it is across North Carolina. But see, the problem is I'm not in North Carolina like I'm in Tennessee. Do they have missing kids? Of course they do. Now, I don't know if they're just not advocating for their missing kids like they are, but they, like in North Carolina, they don't have problems throwing the parents in jail when they can't produce their kid. Madalena Kojakari is a great example of North Carolina. They had the stepfather and the mother jammed up for almost 2 solid years in jail because they couldn't produce their child. So it's like they know about low-hanging fruit over in North Carolina. So if you're going to lock your doors, then be perform. Like, I don't care, as long as you're getting results. I do care that the police station. It's a pet peeve of me not to have police and sheriff's office open nights and weekends. It is a absolute utter pet peeve. So it's not just about going in there and complaining. It's also going into the communities and helping. I know that by me coming into that community, I know that we're going to have some type of airtime on their local news, which will be out there in the public. And this will be a great time for me to advocate for law enforcement and what the need for funding our police and funding our law enforcement. Because law enforcement buildings should be open. We should have enough money in Tennessee. Tennessee has plenty of money. They're mismanaging the heck out of the money, because there's no excuse why law enforcement, the sheriff's departments, the police departments are not getting their fair share to keep their doors open. How they can't afford to have proper people. They're information officers, right? The police, the information officers that they have. We have none for Sumner County because Nick Barris has kind of stepped into that place. And that's not for Nick Barris's job. Nick Barris works for a news organization. It should not be his job to be the public information officer of the Sumner County Sheriff. And that's pretty much what he has become. But what really frustrates me is nobody is asking about the forensics, and I think the forensics are key here because I truly believe that they have dropped the ball on that aspect of it. Now, before we demand, forensics be done when I'm there in just a few days, that's going to be my question. I'm going to ask them if they're willing to give me an answer off the record. I will take the off the record answer, and I will ask them if I'm allowed to put that on the record. And if they tell me no, I'm just thankful for the information. And that's where it'll be. And I'll continue as I always have and demand that forensics be done, right? But it seems like at this stage in the game, 6 months in, don't you think it's a little odd that there is no interior forensics of the house done? If we find out that it is absolutely true, which I do have a high probability that it is the problem, and that is a problem for me. I hear the coffee bean. Yeah, she's settled down. This room is so cold, so I think that's why I can settle her down in this room much easier, because it's so cold, and she goes and gets under the covers. And when she goes and gets under the covers, it's darker, so she lays there and she ends up zonking out. But when she's out in the living room, she's an Energizer bunny, and I just have to let her go. If everybody wants to see her, she is awake because she's shaking. She's always awake. I know you hate it. You're like, Mommy, you're taking me out she's warm. Taking me out of my warm cubby and showing me in front of everybody. She was so exhausted. She wants to go back in her warm little spot. The air conditioning is on, and she hates the air conditioning. She is cute. She's a sweetheart. I got a video that I'm trying to put together, because I haven't done a video on her. Like I used to do a daily video, and I haven't done a daily video on her in a while. So now I've got like several days that I'm trying to seam together and pack all into one. So usually my 2-minute video is like now 7-minute video. So I won't be posting it here on TikTok is all I'm saying. But I have been posting her growing ups on my YouTube channel. So if you guys love the cute little doggies, you can always just do the keyword. I call her Delilah Bullhorn, so I always label everything Delilah Bullhorn. So if you don't want to watch anything else on my YouTube channel, just search for Delilah Bullhorn, and you'll get to see all her cuteness. She absolutely is cute. And then there was a few things that everybody has gotten her. Like Karen got her this one. So this one stays in the bed with her. And then another gal got her one like this, and it's pink and yellow, so I keep that out in the living room. But she drags that from the living room to the hallway because, again, she's got to keep her eyes on me, right? And she's starting to get a little more independent, but she doesn't like being alone. And so it's so cute because her pink ducky is in the living room, and when I'm sitting in here and I don't want to, play with her, then she goes and grabs the pink one and brings it out to the play area in the hallway. My house is covered with dog toys, okay? I went from a house just being covered with, my paperwork. And now all the paperwork is kind of being put up, and it's being replaced with dog treats and dog toys and doggy. And, when you got to get up in the middle of the night, you're always stepping on a squeaky toy, okay? Oh my God, the dinner was so good. It was so stinking good. I still have a little bit of it left, but I took my neighbor a huge helping. I gave him like half a loin and a lot of those little golden and red potatoes. It was very, very tasty, I'm telling you. And when I tell you to put salt on it and then just add a little more salt, I'm not lying, because you guys saw how much salt I put in there. And by the time it was done, it was not salty at all. So, it's very important that you salt your meat and you salt your vegetables. And it turned out very, very, very tasty. I ate a whole bowl, and I made biscuits. It was good. It was real good. So, yeah, I've got a video. I did, even though I didn't go live and stuff my face. I should have, because it was so good. I can't express that enough. It was delicious. Just delicious, and y'all can't have none. We need a cookbook. I know. Everybody's telling me that. But it's so funny because now, like, even my red sauce, it's all by taste. Like, I know what goes in it. It's like, do. Then I throw some red wine in there. And then I cook it. Like, I cook it down for 16 hours, on low. And if I had to replicate, like, I know how to make it, but I've never sat down and checked out how much, what seasonings I put in and what measurements, because I usually throw this in, throw that in, let it cook down, get my spoon, taste it, like, oh, it's missing this, and it's missing this, and perfect. Let that cook on down. But one of these days I'm gonna have to go through it and figure out what my measurements are. I've got to start, maybe I'll start putting them on a weight. I think if I put them on because I got one of those cooking scales, and I think if I put it on the the kitchen scale. And so I think if I put my seasonings on the kitchen scale and can weigh them, I think I'll be able to tell what the measurement is. Hopefully. I don't know. I love when we watch you cook. Aw, thank you. What's the deal with Sebastian and the SeaWorld is true? What's the deal with Sebastian and SeaWorld? Is that true? I'm not sure what you mean by the deal. His father did a show and played a video of his son being at SeaWorld. I don't know, is that true? I mean, he was at SeaWorld and there was a video played. I don't know the deal. It was just a vacation that was recorded and put into a video. So hopefully that helps. But I'm kind of lost. Maybe my brain's just a little slow. So I apologize. It's nice to see you guys. Oh, hey, Becca. I just saw you come in. It's nice to see you, my love. Let's see what we got here. Any updates? You're the only one I trust. There's not really a whole lot of updates. I mean, well, yesterday there was some breaking information coming out, and I was trying to talk to the creator and explain that I thought that they were wrong in the reporting, and then they got mad at me, and then they started calling because they reached out to a news organization, and a news organization says, I believe this is what happened. And I'm like, why are you reaching out to a news organization? Why aren't you reaching out to law enforcement? And then they got kind of cocky with me. It's like, I'm not the one, everybody's got a phone, even these other content creators. Why do I have to be the one? Because you're the one saying this stuff. That's why you need to call and verify your own information. I verified it 3 months ago. There was no forensics done. Now you're saying there are. And you're validating that through a news organization versus law enforcement. Like that's the reason why I said, you might want to consider calling law enforcement. I wasn't trying to be, disgruntled, but he was. And so then I was like, F you, right? I'm trying to help you. And then what happens? He goes with this thing and says that TBI's taken over because he talked to a receptionist. And I'm sorry, in law enforcement, receptionists aren't privy to the investigation. They're the phone answerer. It's not like in our office, in normal office. There's confidential information that only the investigative team is allowed to have access to. Not everybody in their office is allowed to have access to their internal information on their case. There's people don't realize chain of command and all these other things. So he's talking to somebody and I'm like, maybe you got the wrong person. But anyways, he got a little cocky with me. I'm like, F you, He's like, well, you didn't have to be all like that. And it's like, well, what else do you want? I'm trying to help you here and you're being a douche. So long story short, now Nick Barris came out and kind of, he said that was TBI and they're saying and Nick Barris like, no, TBI does not. So that was what I was trying to protect him from. You know what I'm saying? Because when I get things wrong, everybody breathes down my throat and starts, being nasty and calling me a liar and putting all these videos. They put a video together every single day for me anyway. So that's why I'm so popular, is because all these hate channels just keep throwing my name out there. People come over here and it's like, oh, well, she actually has common sense. Maybe we'll stick with her, And it's just really crazy because that was what I was trying to avoid, is that the mistake and then being raked over by, social media and these animals on here that don't do anything but find something to complain about and never actually do anything productive or have any factual information. Like, I was watching some of these content creators and I look back on the other case, like, they get everything wrong. Why is anybody paying attention to these people? Go back and look at the cases that they covered. Did they make sense then? No, they didn't. So what makes you think they got something right on this one? They haven't had anything right on any of these cases. Which just boggles my mind that people still, because it's about the drama. I'm not with all that nonsense. I'm really not. I know people try to say she's all about the drama. No, I address it. People don't like it. And when you get under my skin or get me, then I'm kind of, scorched earth. It's, if I got something, I'm throwing it out there. You keep coming and keep digging. Well, let me throw some back, And they're like, oh, she's being dramatic. No. It's called Just Desserts, not drama, okay? Get it right. Just saying. Might even be on the borderline of karma. Maybe I am the karma dealer. Wouldn't that be interesting? I'm sorry. I should stop. But we did hear, for the update, we did hear these things, but then Nick Barris came out and kind of put a kibosh on them, so it doesn't sound like those were true. And that's really all I was trying to help the creator not have to deal with, is being inaccurate on this. I know that when we're in a state of there's not a whole lot of information, we're just hopeful. And we got to go to the sources. We can't go to the ancillary sources or the resources in the investigation. We have to go to the sources. Hendersonville Police Department is not the investigative body. It is Sumner County. Sumner County is really the one that you need to speak to, because once Hendersonville, do they give them some support? I'm sure they do. If they need to go out and search something, I'm sure they help them. But the investigative, they're out. Hendersonville, Tennessee, or Hendersonville Police Department is out of the investigation. They provide resources, just like TBI provides resources. What does that mean? It could mean the use of the forensic lab. It could mean their technical or advanced technical teams. It could mean their resources related to different kinds of equipment that needs to be used, maybe sound penetrating sonar, or some type of equipment that they have that they will lend to that law enforcement. That's the resource. It doesn't mean that they're totally investigating every aspect of it. They, like Tennessee, TBI has more investigative rights over the state of Tennessee than, say, Sumner County, you see, and may have access to different software that allows them to do different types of research that maybe Sumner County Sheriff is not does not have, or it might be too costly for a county to run, therefore it diverts to the state. So you got all these little partnerships and all these different resources, but at the end of the day, the investigative responsibilities fall on Sumner County. So I'm one of those people that when I have questions, I go to the horse's mouth. Yeah, are they getting a lot of calls? Maybe they are. It doesn't matter. That's what they're there for. At the end of the day, if you need something answered and you have a question, you don't necessarily have to call them. You can email them and let somebody get back to you at their convenience if you don't want to bother them. There is that option as well. But going to a police department to get investigative information, it's going to be stale. It may be inaccurate. But the one thing, the silver lining of this is it was stated that something was found in the backyard from Hendersonville Police Department. And that they investigated that, or they did some forensic testing out in the backyard. Now, this would have been the time that Henderson Police Department would have been heavily involved in the case at the time. So that might be really, truly new information that we didn't know. And then it opens up another can of worms. What could have possibly been found in the backyard? But I will tell you, even though I kind of butted heads with this content creator is as legit gets, okay? So they're not going to be manufacturing information. They're not going to be manufacturing or telling you they had a call that they did not have, This particular is not like that. I when it comes to what comes out of his mouth, I truly believe what he's saying is what he's done. Just my problem was he was talking to the wrong person, and I was trying to caution him of that, and he got his feelings hurt. Well, I wouldn't say his feelings. He's a grown man, so I don't think I got hurt his feelings. It rubbed him the wrong way, and then he rubbed me the wrong way, and the rest is history. What about what they found by the hospital? What became of that? I remember everything clearly with the hospital, and they have an ancient burial ground. Now, could somebody have intentionally done that? Yes. But from what I hear is there was a lot of flooding over in that area previously to Sebastian disappearing. I don't know exactly when this flooding event, but apparently they had a torrential downpour or something. And I think the bone was moved from one place to the other during this weather event. And of course, with the heightened nature of this particular case, people were looking over there and came across this bone. But the medical examiner did go out there and said that they believe this bone belongs to the graveyard. And I can tell you that anybody that has dealt with human torsos and bones, there is a very distinct look of a fresh bone versus one that's over 100 years old. Okay, so I have to think that this doctor could tell immediately that this is not a bone that's from this century. Okay, and honestly, it is just like that, because if you saw old bone, they're porous, they're much different looking, and of course one that's been weathered to boot. You're looking at it's something that probably is almost unrecognizable as a bone. I mean, it probably has the length, it probably has the characters of it, but the bone itself has got to look like it's in very rough shape, especially it being weathered of any kind. And if it's outside of the casket or the box, then it's severely weathered. Okay, it had to have been severely weathered to make its way from that side to that side. And then being in the ground for over 100 years. I think that it was from maybe almost 200 years ago. I mean, it would have been very noticeable, very brittle. Yeah. So I think that's what all happened. Confused on why the busted. Oh, because we're talking about the Lore Lodge. The Lore Lodge, that was from the beginning. You're probably just now coming in. So the Lore Lodge actually did, and I don't know if you guys know Miley Cyrus. She's a well-known singer. Her father, Billy Ray Cyrus, a well-known country singer. Well, her brother and Billy's son reached out to the Lore Lodge and asked them, believe it or not, to investigate, to check into the case of Sebastian Rogers and to to figure out what has come of it. So he took that job very seriously. He's not one that wants to point fingers or doesn't, he won't go into too much and won't bring anything that could affect the case or anything like that. But he did one video just to introduce Sebastian Rogers to his audience. And then, of course, you can tell he takes a lot of care and time into preparing his show and the level of research that he does. And so he started diving into this case. And of course, just like many of us, went down rabbit holes and stuff like that. But one of the great things is he's hitting everything kind of as we've seen it. As, there are some significant issues in here. And one of the things that he just released over the last 24 hours is the fact Christopher Proudfoot is a liar. And that is a bold statement coming from the Lore Lodge, because the Lore Lodge, one of the things that you will find very quickly about his presentation is he does not like to, put the guilty or state guilty or innocent or anything like that. But he is speaking to his audience, and he's speaking to them very candidly about what he's finding. And this last little bit of going through all the interviews, much like we have done, he has attested that Christopher and Katie have been lying. And so that's where the busted came from, because now it's not just our group stating it. And we did have bold positions much earlier on than many other channels did, because we researched this case. Like, I was doing 18-hour days. Me and my team was up until 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, going over every piece of information, going over maps and, doing our part and everything like that. So one of the things was, did we analyze the case properly? Were we hitting all the cues? And this being a larger channel that takes their time and he has over 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. And if you know anything about YouTube, that's very hard to accomplish. So he really takes his work very seriously, and he's very mild and meek when in his conversations. But he kind of corroborated a lot of what we've been talking about on our channel, and it's just nice to know that we do have some corroboration and some independent. I don't know the guy. I've never met the guy. This is the first time I ever heard of him, and that's because my audience started sending me his stuff. Because they heard the story of Miley Cyrus's brother reaching out to him to ask him to look into this case. The one thing is he usually looks into cases that have already been resolved, and this is one of the very rare cases where this is an active and open investigation, and he's looking into it. So it sounds like there are some things he's already found out that he's not really willing to talk about just yet. He takes it very seriously. He wants to speak to law enforcement before he releases certain information. That's very much respectable. As if many of you guys know, there's a lot of stuff we do. I always try to give it to law enforcement if we find anything, and whether we can talk about it or not, that'll be based upon what law enforcement or directive law enforcement gives us. We do that for a variety of reasons. Now, if I find things from shoe leather work, and it is to resolve an issue, then that's something totally different. That is something I will absolutely bring to my channel. But if it's something that directly hinders an investigation or is a direct piece of evidence or linkage in that case, then it may be talked about generally, but more specificity will not, or it will be totally avoided altogether. There's a lot of stuff from the Summer Wells case I've never brought public. There's a lot of stuff from the Gabby Petito case, even though that it's been done and over with, that the public has never seen. Predominantly all of the stores and businesses that I went into to talk about, like even the camping businesses, to find out if Brian had come in there to purchase a tent. We had a lot of information from the neighbors talking about the screams coming out of the house. We talked about those, but you never saw those interviews, and because I wanted to keep the people private. It was a very people were angry. They were angry that this happened to Gabby. They were angry that law enforcement lost Brian Laundrie. They were just angry. And so there was just a lot of stuff. And it's much like this case, there's still a lot of stuff that I've learned about family and stuff like that I've never talked about on here, because some of the stuff was provided to me in confidence. And so it's just one of those things where I just don't talk about it. If I find it organically and I can bring it up at that point, that's one thing. But when I'm provided information in confidence, until I stumble across it on my own accord, it's just information that I have in the back of my mind when I'm looking at the other stuff. So I really like him. I think you guys, it would all do you guys some really good to go over there and just listen to his information. He really broke a lot of stuff down. He was very knowledgeable. You can tell that he really took his time and listened to all the interviews and was able to really hone in on a lot of the changes and discrepancies that Katie and Chris were saying to him. So saying to these interviewees and how they were changing it, and he really put those in order, and it was a lot. And I can tell you it's a lot to do, because we've done it several times on this channel. When it's all coming out, we can monitor it and go over it. But when our case gets to a stopping point, we have to go back to the beginning and start over again. And then we have to keep doing that, because as we learn more information, there may be something that we didn't know was important in these interviews that we missed at the beginning because we didn't know it was important, or what factor it has, or maybe it's completely changed now where it's not even talked about, but way early on it was, So I'm constantly going back and looking at some of the milestone interviews, like the two on Duchess, Chronicles of Olivia, the Hands interview, and the Green Shirt interview done by local media. So we are going through a lot of information related to this case and related to the multiple changes of the statements. I think those have pretty much been the most major, I think, and those are the most obvious. So if those are the most obvious, think about the stuff that we're not really paying attention to, that's being manipulated and changed and stuff like that. So I am going to be going back. I just did on my YouTube channel the Hands interview. This is from another news organization where Chris and Katie wouldn't let them show their face. They only focused on their hands, and they're trying to beg for the people to keep looking for their son. I mean, they seem so guilty just in the way they're handling their interviews. I'm sorry. What parent? Even Riley Strain's mother, she's got just can't even form a complete sentence and not telling the audience, or the film crews, please just focus on my hands. I don't want people seeing me like this. And you got Katie that can't even produce a tear out of her eye, and she's like, in the hands interview. Everyone that doesn't have her face on it, she right? But when you see her face, you don't get that reaction. Why? Because people would know it's BS, to say it kindly. All right, guys. It's nice to see you. I hadn't been on here in a few days and wanted to come here, let you know I'm still out here. I'm still covering Sebastian Rogers. We got a few other cases going on YouTube that I've been covering. Another one is, obviously the attempted unaliving of President Donald J. Trump. And there's just a lot of people on this platform that just can't handle the truth. So I'll still be covering that on here. I just need to watch what I say. And, I see everybody, it just seems funny because everybody has done a flip-flop on this platform. People seem to be very much pro-Trump on this platform from everything I can see. So the people that are sitting there still crying, just, I don't know what to say other than get a safe space and a coloring book. You're going to need it, honey. God bless. Take it easy. Don't be sleazy. Have a great night, guys.